There's no rotation of Earth, guys. No. Modern conventional scientific man has adopted a 470-year-old theory by Copernicus. There is no, absolutely zero rotation to Earth. That is a fact. It's been proven. Michelson-Morley failed to detect any rotation to the Earth. Airy did an experiment with telescopes. Sagnac did an experiment with light. There's no rotation to the Earth, and it curves the other way. That's the ruse. That's truth. The rectilineator experiment proved the curvature of the Earth curves upward. The Tamarack mineshaft plumb bob experiment showed that plumb bobs diverge at the bottom of mine shafts instead of converging, meaning that the center of the so-called gravity is actually 4,000 miles up instead of 4,000 miles down. What does rotate is the heavens, the celestial sphere, and the planets. Earth is not a planet, guys. Earth is the housing to the entire universe. This is a mindset that has been adopted erroneously by mankind for centuries. And it's completely wrong. It's completely erroneous. The moon doesn't rotate on its axis. There's no axis to the moon. It's moving, it's orbiting inside the Earth. We are all inside the Earth. This is the truth. Imagery, I mean, even they'll say that that person that went up in the balloon, the Felix Baumgartner guy, he showed that the Earth is convex. No, it's so simple, guys. It's a wide-angle lens. You can easily tilt the pitch angle of that camera and make the Earth look concave as well. And that's all that NASA does when they show you imagery of the so-called convex planet Earth. Earth is not a planet. It's not. You've been lied to. You live inside the Earth. It's so hard for you to understand that. There's a layer of glass in the sky that inverts your perception. It's an optical illusion that's created. The whole reason why you see the hull, you only see the partial hull of the ship when you're on a pier and you're looking out. It's an optical bulge effect. It's the same way in which mirages are created. The water in front of the hull of the ship is actually optically rising, but it's not actually rising. You are inside the Earth. That's the whole reason why tsunamis are created, tidal waves, hurricanes. We're inside the bowl of the Earth. Coriolis effect has nothing to do with rotation of the Earth. It's due to the fact that there's a rotating ether inside the Earth. Yeah. Stars are very tiny. Stars are very tiny, and they're created by sonoluminescence, which is reverberating sound in a liquid. So there is a celestial sphere up in the middle of the Earth, and it contains all the stars, and they're very small. Billions and billions of stars, tiny little stars. Twinkle, twinkle. They're very tiny. That's the truth, guys. Why is it so hard for you to believe that? It's so obvious. There's no rotation to the Earth. You know that intrinsically. It's just that these so-called intelligent people have been telling you otherwise. And you trust them with their knowledge. But it's all wrong. And it's all going to be turned backwards. The wisdom of the wise men shall perish, and their knowledge shall be turned backwards. And the face of the covering cast over all people shall be done away with. Isaiah 25. The veil that is spread over all nations. Well, actually, there is a veil. It's ice. There's no solid explanation from conventional scientific man where the ice chunks have come from. They don't just formulate in the air, and they're not coming from airplanes, because they've been coming down a long time before aviation. And not only that, they fall in places where airplanes haven't even traveled. They're coming from the glass mantle up at the top of the sky, which is 62 miles, roughly 100 kilometers. They call that the Kármán line, the division line between atmosphere and space. It's not outer space, it's inner space. That's why the bottom end of auroras are 100 kilometers, because it's just hitting the glass. It's just like if you're touching one of those plasma balls or electron beams from a CRT tube hitting glass and causing it to glow. That's why the bottom end of auroras are at 100 kilometers. There's also a thing called upper atmospheric lightning. They call them sprites. Well, at the top of these sprites, it pans out into like a huge disk flash. And they call those elves. And that's because it's hitting the top of the glass sky. 100 kilometers, they say the height of these elves are. There is a glass sky, and there's ice attached to that, and that's where the ice is coming from. And that's where it says in Scripture that prophetically all this ice is going to fall down like figs off a fig tree. And unfortunately, the amount of energy I try to convince you and tell you this truth, I don't think the majority is ever going to believe me until it's too late, until all the ice falls down. It's sad. It's really sad. There's so much evidence of a glass sky, tektites, fusion crust on meteorites. The whole reason why rainbows are formulated is because the sunlight is being dispersed by the glass and being projected onto the rain clouds. Same thing with the garden hose spray. That's just the surface of projection. There's glass in the sky, folks. That happened after the flood. There was a literal flood. Because inside this pressurized system of the universe, in which Earth is the outer housing, there's an inner celestial sphere that was filled with water too. There's 2 levels of water. There's a celestial ocean above, contained in the celestial firmament. Scientists scoff at Scripture, but it's actually correct. The sun was created after Earth. In the beginning, on the first day, light was created, but that wasn't from the sun. That was from the central celestial octahedron at the apex. The source of the light is hidden behind the upper celestial sphere. It's covered by dark waters and thick clouds of the sky. Well, those are the nebula. It's covered, it's hidden. We don't see the central celestial sphere down here from our perspective, our vantage point, because it's hidden. And at the apex of that pyramid is an extension of the light. Job 38 calls it the high arm, and that extends to the sun. There's even references in Mayan prophecy where a sun received a spark from the center of a galaxy. Well, that center of the galaxy was actually the center celestial octahedron pyramid at the apex, that's where the light emanated. That's where the light originated from. So when it says the sun was created on the 4th day, yeah, it was. And it doesn't necessarily mean that even prior to day 1, whether they're literal days or not, I actually tend to believe they were literal days. I do believe that there was an exponential growth rate, an enhanced growth rate in the beginning when this happened. Not to say that the earth was created at that time, but I do believe it was created before that time. Job 38 references the foundations of the earth as even being constructed prior to Genesis 1:1, where it says the earth was void. Well, I think the void part was just meaning that it was covered by water. So earth was still there, it was just hidden, it was void, it was covered by water, in a sense, because in biblical terms, earth merely means land. So the earth was still there, and the foundations of the earth were constructed. It describes a geometric pyramidal shape in Job 38, 1-4. So, the earth was created on the first, it was created before the first day, but it was void, it was covered by the waters. What does it say in Genesis 1:1? It says the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters, right? So the waters are already created. Movement was already created. The Spirit was already created. And light originated from the center, from the pyramid, extended to the sun on the fourth day. The sun was created after the dry land appeared, because light was there before the sun. Things happened exponentially, rapidly in the beginning. A good friend of mine who was a biologist in genetic engineering and human cloning research, he even told me they can clone a human being in 6 days, and it takes 1 day for them to recuperate. Same aspect. Okay, exponential increased growth. It was not a linear growth, So I don't see why people believe that there was a civilization tens and hundreds of thousands of years ago, because they cannot prove that. What they can look at is the records of recorded man, and they only extend a few thousand years, maybe 5,000 years. And there was a literal flood, a global deluge, which happened roughly 4,400 years ago. I agree with Ken Tovin on this one. That's about all I agree with him on. But anyway, this is the facts, the literal universe. It's all right there. It's in Scripture. There's a heaven, and then there's the earth. Heaven and earth, the celestial sphere, and the earth shell housing, they're spherical. And you can research this. There's a man named Joe Parr who did studies on pyramids. And pyramids emit a spherical energy field, an energy bubble, if you will. It's the same concept. The foundations of the earth in Job 38 are an octahedral pyramidal shape up in the center of the earth, which we can't see. So that's what was the origin. That's what started it. And the result of that was a spherical energy field, bubble, if you will. The celestial sphere was created after the foundations were formed, okay? And there was a hardened edge to it. That's what they call a firmament. A firmament. I believe it was made out of glass. And then there was a separation that took place because of heat, probably, and because of the material and the elements. They separated. You have the heavier elements separating from the lighter ones, and there was an expanse. So that expanse is inner space. Ether is present. Gravity is a fictitious force. Ether holds us to the ground. You can watch one of my videos where I explain that. So no rotation to Earth. The Foucault pendulum, that only proves that there is movement, not necessarily the movement of Earth. The wobble of Earth, the so-called wobble and the tilt of Earth, there's no wobble or tilt to Earth because firstly it doesn't rotate. Secondly, you can just understand that the celestial sphere wobbles as it rotates like a disco ball inside the Earth. This is truth. This is the true science. I'm not a scientist either, but I understand things from an accurate, perspicuous point of view. Because the Spirit of God dwells in me, and I understand things accurately. Comet's tail. It's just chromatic aberration. A result of the sunlight refracting and using the glass in the sky to create this chromatic aberration in which the comet is surrounded by a bunch of ice, and it's used as a reflective projection screen. And so when the reds and the blues of the comet's tail are separated like that, that's indicating two different indexes of refraction. The moon doesn't rotate. I told you that before. It's just moving. That's why. I mean, they have to conjure up. See, when they base all their knowledge on a faulty presupposition that the Earth is rotating, they have to further fabricate things and try to fit things into their faulty understanding of things. They have to say, oh, the moon is rotating, but it's only rotating once every 29 and a half days, the same time it takes to rotate around the Earth. That is completely lunacy, because it just doesn't happen that way. They call it tidal locking, but it's a mystery to them. They can't understand it either. It doesn't rotate. I told you how they use wide-angle lenses. How they don't, when NASA, when they're up there, they don't turn the camera. If they turn the camera, technically, if you were really hovering over a sphere, over a convex ball, and you turned the camera, the entire ball would move out of the picture frame. Well, they've shown in different videos, you can even watch the Felix Baumgartner balloon freefall. He turned the camera. The Earth didn't move out of the picture frame. That's because he used a wide-angle lens. And it's just distorting the horizon. It's all done with smoke and mirrors, folks. Come on, wise up. Been lied to for centuries upon centuries. You've adopted an archaic concept by Copernicus. It's just a disgruntled priest anyway. So I can guess you can say that your concept of the universe is actually a religious one, after all. Anyway. And within this system, like I told you before, the sun can stop, like it stopped before 3,300 years ago or something like that. It's recorded in Joshua 10, and different legends around the world corroborate the fact that the Earth, or the sun, stopped for about 2 days, and the moon stayed. Or it's the moon, when they say stayed, it slowed down, basically. That can happen within the accurate model of the universe, my model, where Earth is stationary and the sun and the moon are orbiting inside the Earth. The sun uses a helical circuit, like a cylinder. Every 6 months, it goes to the tropic zones, oscillating back and forth like that. That's how we have seasons. Lunar eclipses happen not from the shadow of the Earth obscuring the moon, for the fact that the sun is emanating its light and it's curving around the inside surface. And so when the moon is opposite the sun inside the Earth, there's actually a little void area of light. It's probably like it's funnel shaped. And so when the moon crosses over that void area of light, it gets eclipsed. This is the truth. The sun is a directional light. It's not an omnidirectional light. It's not a ball of light. It's not a star. It's distinct from stars. I've seen the back of the sun, guys. In a vision. Yes, in a vision. I make a reference to Plato's cave analogy, where the people who are chained and fettered up inside a cave and only view the wall, the shadows on the wall of the cave, cannot perceive or understand the truth. You have been all looking at shadows on a wall, metaphorically, but I've been to the other side. I've been up in the celestial sphere on a raft. I've seen the ocean, the celestial ocean. I've seen the back of the sun. I've seen the eclipse happen from the other side. The back of the sun is dark, except for some rays of light going across the center. It has a ring around it too. And it looked flat. Flat. I know Soho shows you images of sunspots and it looks like the sun is rotating. I don't know. I don't know if they're just hoaxing that or not. But the truth is, what they'll tell you is that that there is a differential rotation between what's going across the equator, the so-called equator of the sun, and the so-called poles of the sun. So they conclude that the sun is not a hard surface. They conclude it must be a gaseous ball. I tend to doubt that. I do believe there is some form of flatness to the sun, which means it's a directional light, like a spot, like a flashlight. A flashlight is a directional light and has a rim to it. That's why when it's projected onto a reflective surface, you can actually, in some flashlights, you can actually create a rainbow on a bright reflective surface. It doesn't take water droplets in the air to create that rainbow. It's because the rim, the circular rim of that light is arcing the dispersed light, the spectral light. That's how rainbows happen. That's why the inside of a rainbow is brighter than the outside. Because the sun is a directional light, it's acting like a flashlight. That's why we see halos on the moon sometimes. You're looking at the light, which actually is, the moon is actually receiving the light from the sun, but then it's projecting that light onto the glass sky, and the glass sky is causing that halo. There's glass in the sky, folks. Ball lightning is created because there's glass in the sky. Ham radio waves, the height in which ham radio waves or short wave radio waves disperse or scatter, it's at 100 kilometers, the height of the glass sky. That is the height in which determines what is atmosphere from inner space. There is a glass sky. Job 37:18. Hast thou with him stretched out the sky, which is strong as a molten looking glass? Strong, it's hard, it's firm like a firmament. The sky definitely has a hard ceiling to it. It's a literal ceiling. Libyan desert glass. They don't know where this glass came from in the Libyan desert. It came from the glass sky. They know about it, folks. They have to know about it. The Masons know about it. I was conversing with a guy on Facebook who was a Mason, high-level Mason. He's like, what do you know about the glass? They know it. They know it, guys. It's just your public incredulity that keeps it hidden so well. I don't know what else I have to do to prove it to you. I think it's a heart condition, ultimately. If you read Jeremiah 5:21 and 22, it talks about the glass sky in a riddle. It says, I've created the sand as the bond of the sea by a perpetual decree. But you have eyes and you see not. You have ears and you hear not, because your hearts are revolted and gone. It's your heart condition. It's a lack of humility and contrition that you possess. You don't have it. You don't have the humility and the contrition because you're going along this road, this tangential aberration from the truth. And it's built upon this faulty foundation. And there's money to be made. And there's a name for recognition. You don't want to be mocked. You don't want to be ridiculed. You don't want to be laughed at. Everywhere you go, I listen to this garbage all the time from these seemingly intelligent people. They'll falsely ascribe what the ancients, the Mayans, they knew that the rotation of the Earth and the center of the galaxy is going to be aligned at this such and such date. No. I'm sure they knew the Earth was stationary and the heavens moved as well. Zero movement to Earth, folks. Zero. Zero. It doesn't move. Satellites are orbiting inside the Earth. They're above the glass. You can get through the glass. That's why they have flush bottom heat shields, space vehicles. or rockets that are carrying satellites. They pierce through the glass and they orbit inside inner space. They're orbiting. Planets are tiny. All the planets. Earth is not a planet. Remember that. Earth is not a planet. Don't call a planet Earth. It's not a planet. It's your mother. It's your womb. It houses the entire universe. The entire universe fits within the Earth. So the planets are small. They have to be. You have to conclude that planets are very small. It's all relative. All these distances that they talk about. It's all based upon a faulty presupposition of what they think the distance is. The astronomical unit, 93 million miles. No. Light years, no. You could look at imagery from the space telescopes like Hubble of nebula. They're small. They look like clouds because they are clouds. Nebula means clouds. They're space clouds. I would say planets are, like Jupiter, Saturn, the biggest of the planets, they're probably no bigger than a house. The sun, the moon, they're small. Everything's close and small. And the glass distorts your perception of the heavens. The sky you think is like a vaulted dome because you see the sun rising and then you see the sun setting. But it's actually an opposite in curvature. It curves, it warps, it distorts your perception 180 degrees. So all actuality is that the sun, the sky, is actually a convex ceiling. If you're down here, the sky is up there, it's a convex. But the glass, with refraction, it twists it the other way. That's kind of like the trick of Mother Nature played on people, or God played on people. So, I've been wrong prophetically, but it doesn't mean it's not going to happen eventually, with the ice falling down from the sky. It does talk about that. Isaiah 28, Isaiah 34, Revelation 6, Matthew 24. The ice will fall down all over the entire world. It'll be shocking. It talks about reporting it, like the news people reporting it. It's going to be utterly shocking for everybody. Two are in one field and one shall be taken, the other left. That's talking about ice falling on certain people randomly, and other people it's sparing and missing. And that will happen as a result of the sun stopping. If you read Joshua 10, you see that when the sun stopped, ice fell down from the sky. It's the same concept. If the sun stops, when it does stop, it'll generate a disproportional amount of heat to one specific area in the sky and cause the ice to start crumbling and falling to the earth. It'll completely rock the earth. Earth is just a shell. It's thin, 20 to 40 miles, they say the crust of the earth is. Well, that's probably true, but that's all there is. There's nothing beneath that. It's just a shell. Seismic waves, they say the S waves and the P waves conclude that the earth is solid. Well, no, the earth is, because it's so thin, just like a membrane, okay? So if there's like a earthquake on one side of the earth, it'll create a seismic occurrence on the other side, just due to the fact that it's just this thin membrane. It's reacting, it's a counter-reaction. It's ridiculous to even conclude that they can even assess, hypothetically, what is beneath even 10 miles, because they haven't even drilled more than 8 miles. It's all speculation. Earth is not solid. And it's not even 800 miles thick the way hollow earthers think. No, this is a hollow inverted earth, where it's just a thin, flimsy shell, relatively speaking. So, just like a big container of sound, big resonating container Earth is. Even the glass sky is affected by earthquakes. They call them Rayleigh waves. They show aerial footage of like an earthquake that happened in Japan in 2003. And they show the ionosphere kind of like having these rings to it, like if you threw a pebble in a pond, it creates these waves, these Rayleigh waves. Everything is affected by vibration within the earth. It's the truth. You are living on the edge, just like the song in Aerosmith, by Aerosmith. You're living on the edge. Chicken Little tells you that the sky is falling. Even if it wasn't, it'd still be crawling back again. So, believe it. Believe it. I'm telling you the truth. Cyrus Teed was correct in his foundational premise that we are living inside the earth. He may have had some faulty misconceptions of the material up in space or different minor aspects to the model, but it's still true. He neglected the fact that there's glass in the sky, for one thing. But it's true, and this information has been suppressed, not only suppressed, but discarded because it seems ridiculous. But it's true. It's the truth. Truth is stranger than fiction. Strange. It talks about God doing a strange thing in the book of Isaiah. This is the strange thing. It's strange to you. It's strange to 99.999% of the population. So, okay. That's my synopsis. It's your heart, the condition of your heart. Soften your heart, and you will understand. Humble yourself before God, and you will understand the truth. I've ceased from arguing with you. I've disabled my comments because I'm pulling back the concept of Deus absconditus. Look that up. Luther talked about that. It's just like I've had enough, Concept of God striving with man. I will not strive with man forever. I'm done striving with you. I've had enough. I've had enough of ridicule. I've had enough of mockery. It's no fun. So I need to protect myself from that. And I love myself enough not to allow that type of abuse to be cast upon me anymore. So, that is that for now. Verily I am a God that hideth myself. Isaiah 45:15. So, go to the closet. Get on your knees. Humble yourself. Seek the Lord. Ask. Is this true, what Steve tells us? Humbly ask. And God will show up and He will answer you because He's near those who are broken and contrite. The Spirit of God give you truth. Bless you with that.